The internet is truly a magical place where anybody can log on, share their ideas and opinions, their fine pieces of artistic expression, videos and images of cool things they've seen and done, and of course the plentiful amounts of memes that are curated by the lowest common denominator. If you can think of it, there's probably a website for it, or at least a dedicated following on some social media service. You gotta be careful with what you're looking for online, because one wrong search or misclick could lead you to some unwanted openings. That being said, some people use the internet for things that are a little less than savory. I'm not just talking about adult entertainment, even though that's gonna tie in pretty heavily to the topic of today's video, but rather things that are intended to evoke a strong emotion, usually one that isn't exactly positive. While less common today, a means of garnering attention in the bygone age of the Wild West of the web was through shock sites. Shock sites are websites that are created with the intention of offending or shocking the viewer. Nothing more, nothing less. This genre of content has transcended from just individual websites, as nowadays shocking videos and images are just as pervasive as ever. If you've used services such as image boards or just happen to find a spicy thread on Twitter, odds are you've seen something that made your jaw drop for all of the wrong reasons. Hell, just the other day I was scrolling through Twitter and saw some guy's severed head resting neatly on top of a car in Mexico. What a fascinating find on the internet. Today's topic may not have been the first of its kind, but it definitely paved the way for the future of the internet and changed the ways people communicated. Don't act like you haven't sent a disgusting video to one of your buddies before. Nobody's above a lowbrow chuckle. Back in 1999, a little website popped up online with a peculiar URL, being goatse.cx. The content of the site was simple, straight to the point, and honest. Mostly. The name was a little deceiving, as the title was meant to be read out as goat sex. If you were hoping to learn about the mechanics of reproduction in goats, or you just wanted to see a goat get railed by somebody, you're probably going to be disappointed to learn about the true content of the page. The site simply featured an image of a man with an unnaturally stretched anus, which exposed the inside of his hole and revealed the depths of his rectum to anyone who was unfortunate enough to cast their eyes upon the site. Just the thing people wanted to see. At least, I'm assuming somebody wanted to see that. The website had two primary directories, titled the receiver and the giver respectively. The receiver was the main page, being the site's index. The pages tab was simply just E and H, and contained an image labeled as hello.jpg, which featured the aforementioned stretched booty hole. The giver, however, was titled Whoa, and featured a picture of a man with a Johnson that was long enough to stand up straight to the top of his chest. The implication was that his butthole was expanded merely to accommodate the size of his magnum dong. Wouldn't it be awesome if that were true? Imagine your tallywhacker so mighty and intimidating that not even your own pooty hole is durable enough to withstand being resized by your member. Even though the guy with the long hose wasn't the person who actually opened up his crevasse, I do catch myself wondering if the actual person behind the image ever has difficulty taking a dump afterward. Or perhaps it was easier, considering it was stretched out. Or, well, I think you get the idea. In the year 1996, Congress passed the Communications Decency Act, CDA, which made it illegal to display patently offensive material anywhere that it could be viewed by minors. This was troubling because there was really no way of preventing children from being on the internet, and it's the duty of the parents to keep them away from bad things. Some people saw this as a strike against freedom of expression. Nobody was going to tell them that they couldn't use the internet to look at and share freaky images and videos of gore, sex, and whatever else you could possibly think of. Despite this, shock images were still being spread around. Even websites such as rotten.com showed up to stick it to the man, featuring clips and pictures of said shocking material that was already circulating the far corners of the web. The CDA was deemed unconstitutional in 1997 because people realized there's no way to keep degenerates from being nasty and trying to get a rise out of people. Besides, there's more important things to fight than people enjoying gross-out humor, looking at photos of dead people, and videos of boobs. Sure, it might be abhorrent and uncouth, but that's just the nature of the internet and its inhabitants as a whole. Since the push for raunchy media was growing, thanks to being exacerbated by the CDA, it's no surprise that the famous goatse image would start to circulate, scarring anybody who happened to stumble upon it. It started showing up on Usenet services, online forums, email clients, and messaging clients. This thing managed to get both of its hands in the deeper parts of the web, tearing it open to shock a new wave of curious internet denizens. Sometime after, a hacker group known as the Hick Crew found goatse and did what all internet shut-ins love to do. They shared it with their friends, and then they shared it with their friends, and so on and so forth. However, their means of spreading its reach was by posting it in Christian chat rooms for the lulz. Stay classy, internet. Hell, fast forwarding a bit, when the Yankees won the World Series in the year 2000, a skilled hacker broke into their website and turned it into a redirect for the goatse page, causing thousands upon thousands of people to be subjected to a red rectum instead of a celebratory video of a team winning. That should give you an idea of just how prolific this image really is. Going back a bit to 1999, a member of the Hick Crew, known only by their online handle Merlin with a 1, created a website that would start the craze, goatse.cx. Now that the image had its own home to reside in, it was easier than ever to make your friends lose their lunch by showing them a bright red opening. This was the beginning of something glorious, something beautiful. Okay, maybe those are strong words, but regardless, this was a huge moment for the internet. This started a trend of people obfuscating the website's URL so they could discreetly drop a link by placing it in emails and messages to deceive the recipient. Some were even so inspired that they began to notice intriguing holes in places that you might not expect, being lovingly referred to as accidental goatses. Accidental goatses became a very popular fad online, with dedicated communities on various social media sites, with the most recent and relevant one being the r/accidentalgoatsy subreddit. Who knew that one pornographic image could get such a wide-open opportunity to be presented to the far reaches of the web? I know, it's Reddit, it's yucky, but sometimes it does house some gold nuggets. Or maybe I should have said brown nuggets given the subject matter. But whatever. The impact of this particular impacted bottom cannot be understated, as it helped pave the way for the internet we have today, for better and likely for worse, but I also would not want the internet to not be blessed by this truly beloved expansion. People have used this photo as a means to haze their friends to get them acquainted with the deeper workings of the web, as most people weren't ready to traverse uncharted territory like goatse, especially when you compare them to people today. I saw my first goatse when browsing a tech forum many years ago. I was reading a thread regarding an issue I was having with Windows, and one of the seemingly helpful posters said that he had plenty of tools that could help people fix their Windows install. All you had to do was follow the link on his profile, and of course this link went directly to goatse. Not the original, but one of its many mirrors. I suppose it could have been worse. I could have gotten infected with malware, but it was a learning experience nonetheless. The reason there were and still are so many mirrors of goatse was because of the downfall of the original site. On January 14, 2004, goatse.cx was sealed up by the Christmas Island Internet Administration (CIIA) due to obvious acceptable use policy violations. Some people had decided to ruin the fun and report the website for being obscene. The internet did not take this lightly, with mirror sites popping up almost immediately to fill the opening left by the original website. Internet archival is important, and I'm glad that so many people are adamant about keeping their favorite things online, especially images of grotesquely expanded fart boxes. Censorship should never be an option. In the early months of 2007, the CIIA decided to release their hold on the domain and make it available for purchase. This ultimately led to the domain becoming a typo squatting site, which is when a website capitalizes on a typo regarding a particular site, such as goggle.com for Google, but that is potentially a tale for another day. The domain was sold at an auction on April 30, 2007, but a majority of the bids were fraudulent, so the auction had to be reinstated. This did not work either, as people kept submitting fake bids because they found it to be fucking hilarious. Eventually, the website domain was priced at $500,000, and any fake bids would face legal action. $500,000 for a website called goatse? What an interesting proposition. The website came back online on July 4, 2008, featuring an image of Bill O'Reilly with red sprawling text that indicated that the site was still for sale. Some months later, in December of the same year, the website was modified to feature some silver hands opening what appeared to be an aperture, like what you'd see for a camera's lens. In reality, it was probably a robot's asshole, and I think that's pretty freaking cool. Plus, the badass clay character Gumby was also present on the site and hanging out right next to the photo, even sporting a link to ImageJam. The website received an update again in April of 2010, featuring information about an upcoming email messaging service titled Goatse Stinger 2.0. However, this never led anywhere and ultimately fizzled out. I wish I could have had an email registered to Goatse. Imagine using that for a job application. You'd be hired in a heartbeat. The next big attempt at a site relaunch happened in 2012 after the domain was acquired by a new person, all to advertise yet another email service under goatse.cx. This website served as a sign-up sheet which was made in preparation for the December 2012 launch date, but by 2013, the website linked to an Indiegogo campaign for actually deploying the email addresses. It's almost like the site was cursed. A little over a year later in 2014, the website was changed to promote goatsecoin, a unique cryptocurrency that ultimately went the way of the dodo before it even had a chance to become anything more than an idea, much like all of the previous plans for the site. Instead, the site transitioned into an advertisement for Dogecoin. I'm just going to pretend that Spread Asshole Coin was modified and turned into Dogecoin because that is significantly funnier. The crypto crap continues to this very day, having featured an Ethereum crypto derivative called Goatsium, in hopes of turning the site into a hub for meme-related cryptocurrencies. A hacker group was formed in December of 2009, named Goatse Security, or GoatSec for short. It was a small group, containing about 9 members who went out of their way to find gaping security flaws in networks and software, alongside being a trolling group that was tied to the GNAA. I can't say what that acronym stands for on YouTube, so if you want to find out, Google it for yourself. You've been warned. In January of 2010, the group discovered an exploit to Mozilla's Firefox web browser application. Mozilla had blocked many ports that HTML forms didn't normally have access to in order to prevent inter-protocol exploitation. The group learned that the program did not block port 667, which meant that Firefox was still susceptible to cross-protocol attacks. A JavaScript tool was created to flood IRC channels. While some IRC networks were able to push back against the attacks, some others were not so lucky. Goatse Security exposed the Casmal exploit, and one of the group's members, known only as Weave, shared details about it on Encyclopedia Dramatica. In March of 2010, Goatse Security found another exploit, this time being within Apple's proprietary web browser Safari. Safari was available on many different Apple operating systems, primarily iOS. The exploit was subsequently posted to Encyclopedia Dramatica. It was discovered that a user could take advantage of a blocked port by adding 65536 to the end of the port's number. This very same vulnerability was also found in a handful of other browsers, including Stainless and Aurora. Many more hacks happened, but I don't think it's necessary for us to focus too much on the group. But I do find it interesting that people wanted to be aligned with the stretched anus. Quite the umbrella to be standing under. But the legacy of the stretched butt doesn't stop here either. Turns out that in 2007, the British Broadcasting Corporation was holding a special competition to find the best fan-made logo for the upcoming London 2012 Olympics. The logo that was being officially used was fucking terrible, and people were clowning on it left and right, likely making whoever was responsible for it feel insecure about their artistic abilities. And for good reason. I mean, this thing was just needlessly busy and unappealing given the subject matter. The contest was simple. You could submit your rendition of what you believe the Olympics logo should look like. One person, going by the name Shawn, that may have been a pseudonym or not, I don't really care, submitted an image of two gigantic pink hands spreading open the zero in 2012, revealing the Olympic rings. Shawn stated, quote, "Here is my design for the Olympic logo. It's very simple and so memorable. The hands represent Britain pulling together to reveal the Olympics." Well, something was definitely revealed, that's for damn sure. The image was featured on the BBC's website, and even featured on a live televised broadcast. Honestly, I'd count this as a win for the people and freedom of expression. What better way is there to own anybody who's waiting to watch some athletes participate in strenuous sporting events in 5 years? Obviously, the best way to do it is to allude to a particularly spread open crevice that belonged to a mysterious sphincter stretcher. Maybe the International Olympic Committee would have taken a moment away from printing cash to change the logo to that of the goatse one. I might have actually tuned in for the Olympics if that were the case. The image itself is actually still hosted on the BBC's website, which means the legacy of goatse and its impression on the internet will likely be archived for years to come. This kind of stuff is why I love the internet. It's gross, awful, perverse, and full of nasty people, but goddamn can it be entertaining. The practical jokes tend to be brilliant. You gotta appreciate the little stuff, you know? However, this was only one of many notable goatse appearances. Another good example is in May of 2015, when Buckhead, a district of Atlanta, Georgia, was struck by a very visible goatse. An electronic billboard that was attached to a storefront on Peachtree Road was hacked, showing the iconic goatse image to anybody who happened to pass by. This part of town is known for housing many businesses, especially restaurants to dine at. So imagine you went out of your way to stop by a little joint to have yourself a hearty meal. You get your food, you sit down, you look up to people watch, and notice a bright red shining rectum staring right back at you, peering into your soul and destroying the very fabric of your being. What do you do in that instance? Would you be able to finish your meal? Shit, I know I sure could, cause mama didn't raise no quitter. But now to the most important part of the video. Who was the man behind the exposed anus? The hero that was able to get 8 fingers in there, white-knuckled, to present his insights to the wider internet. These questions puzzled people for many years, with stinky fingers being pointed in all directions. But one man stood alone as the true spreader, Kirk Johnson. Kirk is a man who obviously likes fooling around with his butt. I'm not gonna judge the guy. It may not be my cup of tea, but if the worst thing he's doing is revealing his brown eye and posting photos of it online for people to gawk at or tug to, it's really not my problem, even if I was subjected to goatse by internet pranksters. Shit happens. There were rumors for years that this Johnson fellow was the man who did it all, which became a widely debated topic among astute sphincter investigators and pud pullers. The primary evidence for this was the similar frame between Kirk and the legendary images that we all know and fear, and, well, a series of moles on his ass that just so happened to match the goatse photos. Kirk is still active on certain services online, though less active than he was 10 years ago. His accounts, as expected, are built around amateur pornography, such as his Xvideos account, but it would actually be weirder if he used Xvideos to talk about his hobbies that don't involve his anus. I checked his Xvideos account and was mortified by my discovery. Not really shocked, but rather traumatized. Under his profile, labeled Kirk J, you can find videos of him inserting things into his ding-dong, reaching into and digging deeply into his shit pipe, among many other wholesome things. No amount of eye bleach will ever make me unsee him sitting on the things that I witnessed. He's an older gentleman, being somewhere in his late 40s to early 50s, and he really likes inserting large dildos into his butt. In fact, the goatse image is only a single part of a larger series of photos where he inserts 2 oversized rubber appendages inside of him, and a monstrously huge butt plug afterward to boot. Because of his infamy, Kirk does not appear to communicate with his fans or intrepid journalists, ignoring any messages that come his way. However, the owner of a porno site called extremehole.com, which focused on fisting and other butt-bashing activities, managed to get a hold of Mr. Johnson and learned a bit about him, sharing what he learned with the internet in 2006. His ex was a nurse, he used to fly experimental aircraft, and ultralights. He worked as a truck driver, etc. I've talked with him many times and he has provided content for EH, but just his solo stuff. I don't have an amateur section on the site anymore, so I don't use any of it. He actually is a regular poster on other boards and in some news groups, including current pictures and video. He's had a rough time of it, got divorced, lost most of everything. It's been about 7 months since I talked to him on the phone last, but he had moved into a new house out in the country. His new pictures reflect that, since he now has the freedom to do his extreme play outside on his property. I sent him an email about an hour ago to see if he would be interested in hooking up for a paid shoot, but I have been down this road many times with him and have never been able to actually get it worked out. Believe it or not, but he is also a private person. I can't imagine why his wife wanted to divorce him, considering he's a household name for prying open his poop chute. Kirk was annoyed that people were using his turd cutter to make money without sharing the income with him. He was the one who took the bulk of the trauma, considering he was going out of his way to damage his body on camera. The least he should have received is some financial compensation for his contribution to human expression. I think stories like this, while bizarre, are a part of what makes the internet great. If you can think of it, it probably exists. And if you haven't, be prepared to be sorely disappointed when you discover the stuff of your nightmares is just floating around online. The human race is beautifully disgusting, tainting everything we make, but at least it has the tendency to be funny. But that being said, that's going to be it for today's video. If you like what I do, leave a comment, rate, and subscribe. If you want to support me in a more personal way, you can check out the Patreon link and the Teespring link in the description. I've got more content coming down the pipeline. But until then, I'll see you degenerates next time.